started here. So this is so we're focused on today is focusing on something called the cosine law. So we've done the sine law, and now we're doing the cosine law. And so what this kind of entails is, so before we used the sine law when we had some side lengths or angles we didn't know. And we could use that when we knew two side lengths and an angle opposite of one of them, or two angles and a side length opposite one of them. It involves one of the angles or sides being opposite of another one, right? Opposite is the key word there. So what we're primarily focused on today is two things. One, being able to understand the cosine law, and more importantly, being able to understand when we use that instead of the sine law. And so I'm hoping we'll catch on to that one quite quick here. So when we use the cosine law, we look at two different things. So we can solve for a missing side of a triangle, so the third side of a triangle, if we know two side lengths and the angle between them. Between is the key word here. So between is the key word with this. So we are looking for when we have an angle between them. So just for example, you don't need to draw this. Let's say, I don't know, maybe this is my triangle here. Maybe I know this one's 5, this one's 7. I need to have the angle right here for this to work, right? Because it's between the two of them. It's the angle between the two of them. And then I can use that to figure out my last minute missing side. Page 275. The other reason we use this is when we're trying to find any angle of the triangle when we know all three sides. So if you know all three sides of the triangle, you can then find any angle within there, okay? So that's what this kind of works out to. Now, I want you to like box these. These are the two formulas. You will be given both of these. It looks really complicated. I promise you, you can just plug this in your calculator. You do not need to use algebra for this, generally. Usually not. I'll show you. Yeah, I'll show you. Like, this looks really complicated, right? So here's going to be the nice thing. Like I said, it looks complicated. All you need to do. No, so hear me out. So all you're gonna have to do is you notice how it's already kind of solved for us. There's this a squared thing and this cosine a. Everything you need is already going to be on one side of the equal sign. So all you're doing is you're plugging stuff into a calculator, you're pressing enter, and usually that's just boom. There's your answer right there. So
it's minus 2bc.
So
it's dividing.
So yeah, it's divided by this.
And we just take the cosine or cos.
Yeah. So let's do a couple of examples here. Like I said, a lot of people look at this and they're like, oh my god. If you were able to catch on to the last stuff, I promise you this, you'll probably find this a lot easier even. So there is an example here. I'm gonna skip past it, but there is an example here that they've done. I'm gonna go to the question right below it, which is this one here. Question 1 on the next page, 276. So yeah, we're looking at the cosine law here. And these are the two things we use it for, right? Again, when we have two side lengths of a triangle and there's an angle between them, or when we know three sides of a triangle and we're trying to find an angle. So if I look at the one on question 1, first off, what do I have? Is this a right angle triangle? No, it's not. So now I need to look at what types of sides and angles do I have? So first off, I know that I have two sides and I have one angle. Where is that angle? Yeah, it's angle R, but more importantly, it's between these two things, right? So I have two sides and I have an angle between them. So now all of a sudden I know that, oh, I need to use the cosine law here. Now, another way of thinking about it is, let's do that circle stuff we were doing the last couple days. I'm going to start circling stuff here, and you're gonna notice why that sine law we did last time isn't going to work. So I'm just going to quickly circle these sides, how we've been doing. And this.
I did that on my one page and I couldn't even see.
I know I have the luxury of color coding. You guys don't.
I'm just gonna stick with my arrows.
Okay, and that's fine. Just do what works for you. But okay, so first off, if you've noticed here, I know it's kind of a colorful mess, but if you look really closely with the sine law, what happened was we usually had 3 or 4 things, right? With this one though, is there any matching pairs? Is there any pair here that has something that's opposite of them? Like we know the angle and the side? Is there anything there that we know the angle and the side?
61.
I know 61, but do I know this? Do I know the side? Does it tell me how long it is? It doesn't. Yeah, that's absolutely it. So with the sine law, everything you guys worked on above this, let me just find an example here. With this one here, when you match these two, look at the 68 degrees and 1571 meters. They were direct. There was something. It was complete. There was a complete pair there. There is no complete pair on this one that we're looking at right now. There's no complete pair, which means all of a sudden, you know, oh, I can't use sine. Like it's not going to work. I can't use the sine law here. So now the second you do not have any complete pairs there, you know, you need to use the cosine law. Okay. So first off, what I want to look at this is, so I've already figured out I need to use the cosine law. But there's 2 formulas here. Now I need to figure out which one of these am I going to use. And to do that, we need to look at what we're trying to find. So when I look at this, what am I actually trying to find in this? What are we trying to do? We're trying to find R, which is a side, right? We're trying to find the length of a side. So if I go in here and I look at my 2 formulas here, one of these is used to find sides. You notice how it's that little a there? That's the side, right? The other one, I'm looking at the left of the equal sign, is used to find angles. So that's what helps you indicate which ones you want to use. Oh, this one has the cosine of a. We used, you know, those things when we're trying to find angles. This one over here, the little a, that's the length of the side. So you might want to write this down, but that the top one's for sides, the bottom one's for angles. But that's how you figure out which one of those 2 you're going to use. Okay, so does anyone have any question? Like we need to have really good understanding of that. Like we need to know that because that will cause problems otherwise. Does anyone have any questions how I know which formula I need to use when? so if I go to,
It's like, why are these sides and if it can be written like this, like why are they?
sometimes we're trying, because we use this for 2 different things. Sometimes we can use it to find an angle. Sometimes we can use it to find the side. These are technically the same formulas. This was just rewritten for you. You could plug everything in. If you're trying to find an angle, you could use this formula, but then you're going to have to do some really complex algebra to get the answer. And so like that's actually really, it's going to be really difficult. So what they've done is they've given you the other part of it. So that just saves you a bunch of algebra, depending on which one you want to use. So if I'm trying to find a side, I use this top formula. If I'm trying to find an angle, I use this bottom one. You can use either. You're just going to make it a heck of a lot harder for yourself. And you will be given both of these on your departmental, just so you know. You do not need to memorize that. You have it. So I'm going to go back to this question now that we've been working on. So first off, I figured out I need to use the cosine law, and I figured out I'm trying to find a side. So now I'm going to put in that formula. And I recommend just put in the blank formula for now. A squared is equal to b squared plus c squared.
How do you do the square?
I'll show you. I'll show you. Minus 2 BC. And then it's cosine of A. And remember, all of this, like these have little multiplication symbols between them, right? The 2 and the B, there's a time symbol between there. The B and the C, there's a time symbol. Yep. 20, oh, up here? This is just two sides, 2s.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, yeah. So I was just trying to show us like how we know which one rule we're using. So I have my blank formula in here. So now what I need to do is I need to label my sides. In fact, let me just write some of these steps down over here. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. I'm sorry. Actually, you can write these steps down if you'd like, but I'm just kind of going through them here. Which cosine? So we'll go through it. If you're confused right now, that's okay. We're gonna go through it. I'll back up to those in a second. So what I've done is I have I've figured out which triangle this type of is. I've connected my pairs. I figured out I need to use the cosine law, and I figured out which cosine law I need to use. I'm trying to find the side. That's why I'm using this one. So what I need to try and do now is I need to identify A. And so what that means is, remember, I'm right now in the formula, it's solving for A. So I just need to correctly label this because sorry, I'll go over there in a second. I'll go over there in a second. So I'm trying to right now directly label A. And so what that means is, what are you trying to solve? I'm trying to find this thing right here. I'm trying to find R. So I'm going to say that this is my A, okay? So this red I'm doing, that's my A. So that's what I'm trying to find. So I'm going to put R in its place. I'm going to go to my cosine of A, and I'm just going to, oh, instead of cosine of A, I now know that's cosine of 61 degrees. So you look for what you're trying to solve. That is your A, okay? If you put the blue one as your A, you're gonna have to do a heck of a lot of algebra. If you set this up correctly, you just punch in your calculator and it's pretty much going to give you the answer. We need to make sure we set it up correctly though. And then it doesn't matter what I do for the other ones. I'm just going to say the blue is B and the green is C. That could be alternated. You just need to get the A labeled correctly. It doesn't matter for the other two. So now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to substitute my stuff in. So instead of A, I put R. Instead of B, this is going to be 6.5 squared. Instead of C, it's going to be 4.3 squared. And then it's subtract 2. Now for B, I have 6.5. I'm just going to erase this stuff at the right, and I'll fill it in a second. So 6.5. And then C is 4.3. You see I'm putting brackets around it here? That just shows that you're times in these, right? You could put a little time symbol there if you want. And then there's also cos of 61 degrees. So it looks really complicated, right? So let's put it in our calculator, because all we really need to do now is we set it up. I just need to punch in my calculator now. So I'll show you how to do that. So you're going to just put it in exactly how you see it. So I'm going to take 6.5 and this little squared button. If you look in the middle of your calculator, there's a little X with a 2 on it. A little X with a 2, that is your squared button. So if I click that, it knows.
What? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 6.5 squared. No worries. Yeah, so 6.5 squared plus 4.3 squared. And then I'm going to subtract 2 bracket 6.5 bracket 4.3 cosine of 61. Oh, cosine of 61. So you put this in your calculator exactly how you see it. And if you do that, I now have an answer here. So 33 point, I'm just going to go to one decimal place, 33.6. So, okay, R squared is 33.6. Am I done? I take the square root because I don't care what r squared is. I'm trying to find r. I'm just trying to find the length of that side. So I need to take the square root of both of these. And if you remember on your calculator, that's this little button right here. That's that little slashed one right beside your squared button. So if you click that, all of a sudden I can see that, oh, it's going to be 5.8. So they've given you the pre-solved equations already, so you don't have to do a lot of the algebraic manipulation. You might see some of those questions in here where you do need to manipulate that. I do not expect that you will see those on your final exam, okay? From the ones I've seen that they've done in the past, I haven't seen those types of problems yet. So if they do that, they've done a curveball on everyone. But so again, so just to go back into my rules here, we labeled our triangle with our opposing pairs, of which there were none. Because there's no opposite pairs, I then know that I have to use the cosine law. Because I'm trying to find a side, I know I need to use the one that solves for sides. I figured out what A was because A is what I'm trying to find, and then I just plugged it in and I solved it. So what I want you to try and do is I want you to try and do that next one. It is set up the exact same way. If you flip your page and go to question B, it is set up to be, I believe it's the exact same way. Yes. Yeah, so it's set up to be the exact same way. I'm going to give you about a minute to do that, so you don't have a lot of time. I'll give you a minute and a half. It's a lot of writing. So minute and a half, try out question B. I will leave this on my screen just so you don't have to go flip back and forth if that's what you want to do. So with this one, yeah, so we've set it up, we've labeled our sides, and now I've set up my equation. So now I'm just going to plug it in. 12.3 squared plus 12.1 squared minus 2. Put the brackets in. It will mess it up if you don't have the brackets. So it's really important. Times cos of 41. So you plug that all in, you should get you guys got 73.1? Yeah. Okay, and then I just take that and I'm going to square root it. And I get 8.55.
What's it close for?
Close to 41. I know, I'm sorry, it's really cramped.
My kids are home alone and there's people.
If you need to go, you need to go. I get it.
I told them one. They have all not
Oh, I see. Really?
and my mom's not for the weekend, so they're just home by I mean, the teenagers. You know, they don't have to like not open the door.
They're teenagers is all you had to say. So there is 2 questions left there.
I don't fear it. I have a daughter's older than me.
Oh, really?
So there's 2 questions left here. What I want you to do is, so just a little bit below, I'm just going to give you like 4 minutes for those. Not a whole lot of time to try and work on those here. We won't really go through them, just so you know. It's just some time to practice that skill. So we've only done ones where we're trying to find a side. We're going to go to the one where we're trying to find an angle after that. So you got about 4 or 5 minutes, work on those 2 questions, and then we're going to move on to the second part of this. So again, there is an example here that you're welcome to use. I'm going to bypass them. I'm going to go straight to question 3 here. So first off, I'm going to look at this triangle. Again, don't just, you know what you're going to have to use here based on what we're learning today, but practice the skill, right? Look at it. Oh, it's not a right triangle. So I don't use Pythagoras and stuff. Going to look at it and you're going to try and see what it has. In this case, I'm getting the exact same spam call right now, Kim. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there's any points I can connect. So I'm going to quickly do that. Ooh, maybe a little bit neater. And if I look here, I see that, oh, I have no connected pairs here. That means I don't use the sine law. I now need to use the cosine law. And I'm trying to find an angle. So, okay, I know I need to use cosine. I know I need to try and find an angle. I'm going to use the formula that has that solved for me already. I'm going to use the one that has the angle here. The cosine of A is equal to that fraction. So I'll show you how to set this one up on your calculator. It's kind of done the exact same way, which is just we set it up correctly, and then we just plug it in. So I'm on page 279. So I'm just going to put my blank formula in for now, and I'm just going to erase everything in this triangle. So I'm going to go to and put my stuff in here. So cosine of A is equal to B squared plus C squared minus A squared. And then this is all over top. Remember, this line means dividing, right? All divided by 2BC. And this 2 and B and C's, there's a little invisible times in between those, right? I'm just going to make this a little bit neater. Is this big enough?
B squared plus.
B squared plus C squared minus A squared. Okay. So I figured out which formula I need to use. Now I need to fill it in. But remember, the important part of this is I'm trying to find cosine of A, the angle of A. So I need to make sure that I label the side correctly. So I know that this one here has to be A because this is the angle I'm trying to find. And then with the other, so let me actually just do this. Let me do this. Make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. So I'm just going to quickly draw my little circles here. And blue. I know it's very messy. I apologize. So red has to be my A because that's the angle I'm trying to find. I'm just going to say blue is B and green is C. B and C don't matter. Just get A correct. It's just like a Pythagoras, right? Get the one thing labeled correctly. Everything else doesn't matter. So so now I'm just going to substitute my stuff in, right? So cosine of A. They put a little question mark here. I'm going to put Z because that's the angle that they're technically trying to find. So that's where I'm getting Z from, is that's the angle, is equal to B squared. So B was 12.3 squared plus C squared, which is 8.2, minus A squared, which is 5.1. And that's all divided by 2BC. So what that 2BC means, 2 times B times C. So you could either put that little times there. I'm going to recommend just put it as a bracket though. Keep it consistent how we were doing before. So 2 bracket, my B was 12.3. Bracket 8.2. You notice how they're not squared. That's a common mistake I see people make. They accidentally square just because they're used to, oh, it went squared. So I'll give you 15 seconds to get caught up there, and I'll show you how we punch this into a calculator. Okay. So first thing you're going to want to do, turn it into a fraction. Save yourself the pain. Don't use the divided symbol. Turn it into a fraction, okay? I recommend every time you see a fraction in your work, just use a fraction in there. It simplifies it. So I'm just going to write it in. Oh, yeah. So fractions, that little A/B button. So on the top of it, I'm going to write exactly what I see. 12.3 squared plus 8.2 squared. Backspace. Minus 5.1 squared. Make sure you get that your signs correct. So I've done the top. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom using the arrow key. I'm going to do 2 bracket 12.3, close the bracket and use a new one. 8.2 and another bracket. And so now when you press enter, this should just give you a number.
Yeah, like 0.
Yes, yeah. So I'm gonna write this whole thing in here for a second. You don't need to do this. I'm just gonna write it in for reference sake. So 0. Sorry, can you read that out to me very, very slowly?
2226.
2226. Okay, so
would it be just 10?
not quite. So I'm not done. Remember, right now I don't care about the cosine. Is not square. I need to get rid of this cosine, right? I don't care about the cosine of z. I care about just what angle z is. So I need to, if you were to take this number and if you were to divide it by cosine, if you remember, it breaks your calculator. So we need to use that second function cosine and then put that number in. Now for you guys, I'm just going to remap this out to save you guys some trouble. So bear with me 1 second while I quickly re-put this in. So your calculator has an onboard memory. So what you can do is, so the second you press enter, so hey, I put my entire formula in here. I press enter. I got this number. Now I can take that second function cosine of it and just press equals because it puts your answer in there. It remembers that, oh, this is what they're working with. Yeah. And then you press that cosine. And then equals, yeah.
So it'd be 17?
Yeah, so angle Z would be 17 degrees. So this is bringing back that stuff we learned on Wednesday, which is when we split that ratio, that cosine and that angle. The second you take those apart, you have to use that second function symbol. So like I said, the formula looks really complicated, but if you've done the correct work in setting it up, it's just putting the stuff in and then doing one more thing with your calculator. That's either taking the square root or that's taking that inverse of it. Okay. So try out question B here on your own. It is set up the same way, the exact same type of question. So try out question B. I'll give you a minute and a half for that, just like before. All right, so for question B here, so what I've done is I've just set up my equation. I skipped put in the blank one there just to kind of save some time, but the only thing I need to know here is I'm trying to find the angle, so I'm using the cosine rule, so I'm using this, and I know that I'm trying to find angle T, so this is going to be my A, and then it doesn't matter what I do with the rest of the stuff.
Oh, I didn't do the second step, I just did the cosine.
Yeah, and that's fine. So you just did is you just put this in your calculator, and this is what I would expect you guys to do, right? Just put it in your calculator as you see it. 165 squared minus 116 squared all over 288 165. So you probably went straight from this. And then you probably did the second function, and that's okay. I do not recommend writing this number down anywhere. If you're even off by a decimal point, it changes your answer a lot. They don't expect you to do this. So this is the type of stuff. The second you know you're gonna need to take the inverse of this, you need to know you need to keep that whole thing together. That sucks to keep track of like a 10-digit number. So just work it all on your calculator. So I'm taking the cosine inverse of that, press and enter. 42 degrees. You could round this if you want, just don't round that other number. It'll be like a 0 point something number. Don't do that. That will cause problems later. Okay, so 42 degrees. So how are we feeling with this new stuff?
I mean,
once you set it up, once you're able to set it up, it's just using your calculator. Yeah, it's just remembering how to set it up.
I mean, that part's easier.
No, I mean it's very difficult to do. You can do like this cosine and sine stuff in your head, but there's very specific values they keep it at, and that's more of a calculus related thing. That's not something you're going to have to do. So to be honest with you guys, all the stuff after this is really it's just taking the same concepts, right triangles, non-right triangles, Pythagoras, SOHCAHTOA, the sine law, the cosine law, and it's just blending them all together now. So what I'm going to recommend you do is, this is the last day we're going to spend on this unit. Yeah, I think it's the last day we're going to spend on this unit. So what I'm going to recommend you guys do is take the time now just to go through these, try and challenge yourself, try and get to those more difficult questions. We'll do a very short review on Monday just because I know it's the weekend. But this is your time here to make sure you get this stuff down. If you have questions, please ask me. But yeah, really at this point onwards, it's just time to go through the workbook here. Try and challenge yourself, right? Go to those difficult questions that take multiple different concepts with them, because it's really looking at it, trying to diagnose, what do I need to do? It's not just about being able to do this math. You need to be able to look at a situation and figure out which one of those 4 things you need to use. When we have triangles now, we have 4 things in our arsenal, right? Pythagoras, we have basic trig, SOHCAHTOA, we have the sine law, and we have the cosine law. So I'll let you guys get on with it then.